No, look. I'm so scared. I'm so nervous. I've never been so nervous about any video before. Really, just the fireworks are showing through, but that is incredible. Right, we are back with another crazy resin experiment. We are going to be growing some incredible crystals using urea in our resin art. Now, this one popped up on my YouTube feed really randomly because I don't watch stuff like this. And it, as far as I know, this comes from like a spray paint bodywork kind of technique. So what they do is they spread this solution over the body work and it grows these incredibly large structured crystals. Now you've seen me use this stuff on the channel before. It's a special effects paint and it grows these. You can see the crystals up there. But they're much smaller, but I think this is potentially how they make this. So we could play around at a later date with the dilution rates to get this effect. But what I'll do is I'll pop the video links in the description below of what kind of got my imagination going with this one. And if it does work with resin, I don't see why not. It's going to be pretty incredible. And again, you know, the color combos that we can do with this are going to be pretty good. So we do need to go into the kitchen. Just to let everyone know, most of you do, my studio has a designated kitchen. There's no food preparation going on in there. This has no safety warnings. I am going to just open the door whilst I'm doing it. I think it's fairly safe. And there is a recipe. There's a conflicting recipe. So I've seen a couple of different videos. One is saying mix 1-1 with water. So 1 part the urea, 1 part water. Another video is saying 2 parts water to 1 part urea. And it depends on the size of the crystal. What also depends is the temperature that you're working in. One video says don't put it in direct sunlight to grow the crystals. Another video says do put it in sunlight to grow the crystals. So as far as I know, the higher the temperature and the more liquid you put on, the bigger the crystals grow. The cooler the temperature you're in and the thinner you put the solution on, the smaller the crystals grow. I don't know. I'm in the middle. So I'm just going to make it up and wing it. Also, it may sound really strange, but I don't have any scales in my studio. So again, I've got to eyeball this and wing it. I hope it works. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do 100 ml of water, and that's a 500 gram bag. So I think I'm going to go with, I'm going to try and eyeball 100 grams out. But what I'll do is I'll pour it into another cup and show you the measurement. Okay, so I've got 100 ml of water. It does say distilled water, but it's going to be boiled. It's just normal tap water. And this, again, I've eyeballed it. I reckon it's around 1/5 of the bag. And that's showing up at 4.5 fluid ounces in my cup. Again, I am completely just winging this video. Hopefully it will work. So in goes my 100 ml of water. I'm going to bring that to the boil. Then I'm going to add my urea and let that simmer. So we just want to make sure all of this is dissolved. So that has all dissolved, and I think we just need to just keep going, but the trouble is we don't want all of the water content to evaporate. So I'm just going to let that simmer on a low heat for maybe a couple of minutes, 5 minutes max. So as I've been stirring it, some of it has splashed onto my gloves. Obviously be careful, but you can see some little crystals growing on my gloves. And that is very, almost exactly the same as the Vallejo paint that we use. So I've turned off the heat and I'm just going to let that cool down. So now that has cooled down, I'm going to add my, oh, it's supposed to be 1 drop. Again, I'm just winging it. And that was just dish soap. Okay, so I've just put mine in a spray bottle. You can put it in a jar if you want. I'm just hoping the ratio is okay. So what I'm going to do now is just do a trial run, just to see what we get. My studio temperature is at 24 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. So I've got this old coaster. Now, what they do in the paint techniques is they spray a base coat of paint and then they lightly sand it. The reason why they sand it, like I mentioned, is that if we don't, and we were to apply this onto a gloss finish, it's going to hold these droplets, see? So the surface does need to be sanded. So this is just an old coaster, and it was just a silver mica powder layer, and I'm just going to sand that, really rough the surface up. Okay, I'm going to spray the surface, and then I think just using my finger, just going to make sure I've got even coverage over the whole coaster. And what I'll do is I'll try and get a hyperlapse of the crystals forming. So it's only been a few minutes and you can see these outside crystals starting to reach in. Now the coaster is slightly dipped in the middle. So what's happening is the outside is drying quicker and the crystals feed off the wet solution. So as they're growing, they will absorb the solution to grow further. So this makes sense with the longer crystals, with the more solution you put on, because they need that to feed to grow. If it was completely flat and the whole thing was shallow, they can only reach so far until it hits a dry spot, and it will kind of grow in different formations. Now the videos that I've seen also, what you can do is you can manipulate like these star effects by pushing in something, a pin, a screw, lots of different things you can use. And basically when you push it in, it will start to grow out in a formation from that point. But it needs to be the right consistency to be able to do that. And you'll see shortly. So you will see they're all kind of growing towards that puddle that's left in this area here. Now, to kind of create more star effects, see this area here, it looks dry but it's still slightly damp. So if I touch that, watch, try and get a better light, you can see it starting to grow these very, very fine crystals. They're just feeding off that slightly damp area, and it will just grow tiny little star formations. Really is incredible. It's very different to the Vallejo. So we can kind of control where we want certain effects. But this area here, if I touch it, it's just, there's too much formula there still that they're feeding off and growing into. So to finish off that little area there, I'm just going to hopefully get a small star grown. You see, it's starting to grow already. It still has a little bit of drying to do, but you can see that absolutely incredible formation. Right, before we continue, a massive, massive thank you to you all. Special, very special announcement from my little one, Toby. Dude, guess what's here? Open it if you want. I haven't opened it yet.
When did it come?
Today.
Wait,
I've had to wait all day for you to open it. I think Mummy's going to get some scissors to make it a little bit easier. What's that?
Just take it on there.
I'll read it after.
Oh, oh my god. Oh my.
Pick it up. Just don't drop it.
Yeah. Well,
When he left them, he decided to walk home. But that was a 10-hour drive.
recognize your
He rang
thing.
his friend Lucy.
Random.
Oh, that's in case I want to order another one.
What's that?
It's just the unknown.
Just to keep it fresh.
I don't
Put it
know.
down.
It's fine. It's just packaging stuff. You can dry flowers with that stuff.
Is that jelly stuff?
Silica gel.
Yeah.
Since then, Lucy's been appealing for help on social media.
Hold it up.
As a result, locals have come to join
Oh
the search.
my god.
But there's also
It's like a mirror. Don't drop it.
she didn't want
Nearly.
to show her face.
Oh my.
All she does want is for Jay to be found
Show me,
safe.
Toby.
First person to hold it.
Is it going in here?
Show me the front of it, lay it down.
He hasn't done that, has he? That's not happened. Phone call has happened.
What do you say to all my subs?
Thank you.
As you can tell, I mean, he loves YouTube and he's been so excited for that to arrive. So again, a massive shout out to anyone who's just been here and watched the channel for its journey so far. We've got a long way to go yet. If you haven't hit that button, hit that sub button for me. This is what we do. Crazy, crazy stuff. So the next stage is with this. Actually, we're not going to go there yet. I'm happy with how this is worked. I'm happy with the length of the crystals. I'm happy with the dilution of the solution. I think we can now move on to a proper project. My brain is going overtime with this. I'm thinking cups, tumblers. Yeah, I'm thinking jewelry. Obviously coasters. I don't know what to do. I think even bookmarks. I think I'm gonna go with a coaster. I'm gonna stick with a coaster. But because this coaster was dipped slightly and it puddled in the middle, maybe I put too much on. I want the coaster to be as flat as possible. So what I'm thinking is that if I pour the colour that I want as the base, I'm not going to go with silver. I think I'm going to go with a neon colour. And when we take it out the mould, the bottom is actually going to be the top that we're working with. So that's the flattest side. I almost changed my mind. I thought about going with a chameleon flake, but then when it comes to sanding down the surface to make it matte, it's going to remove the chameleon flake because it is so fine. So if you're going to do it with a chameleon flake, I'd say do a layer of clear when it's almost cured but still quite tacky. You could then apply the chameleon flake and do it that way, but I'm going to stick with my original idea. Now, to use less neon powders, it would make sense to do a very thin layer, maybe 1 milliliter. It's not going to go far. 1 millimeter of neon, let it cure, and then top it up with a black or white or whatever. But I can't be bothered to wait, so I'm just going to use a lot of neon powder and just fill that right out. And for this, I'm just using the Lex Resin Daniel Cooper collab resin, and the neon colour is from the Lex Resin Neon Powder 12 set. I think I'm going to go with a really bright green for this. And the good thing is, I mean, once we've done this stage and we've got the coaster, this just washes off. If you're not happy and it's not gone right, you can adjust the solution until you've got it right. So the coaster's not going to be wasted. And it's the kind of technique that's perfect if you've got dull coaster molds already, or any mold, because you need it matte. So yeah, don't throw away your old dull molds. So when using neon powders, especially with greens, I found this with a few brands, they can be very lumpy and clumpy. So what I do is I just take my mixing stick from my resin that I've just mixed. And I just add, essentially we're making a paste that we can then mix in with our resin. This will help remove the lumps, because those lumps will sink and then they won't be thoroughly mixed in with the resin, and it can, when you demold it, it can look very, very patchy. So I need to add a bit more. So be easier to pour it. Just making a pigment paste essentially, but not one that we can store away because it will set, because there's both parts A and B in there. We just really want to work that into a very, very mixed paste before we can introduce that to our epoxy. Just don't take too long because your epoxy is going to gain temperature. So there we have a very dark, hopefully lump-free mixture that we can now scrape out and mix in with our resin. Now, to make that a bit more opaque and solid, I'm going to add a couple of drops of my white pigment paste and thoroughly mix that in, and that will also lighten the green up. Really, really make it neon. So we now just pour and let it cure. You can just see how much of a difference that white pigment paste has made. Made it so much brighter and more neon than it was before. Right, my neon coaster is cured. I've come back into my studio this morning and there's kind of crystals growing everywhere from where I have sprayed the spray. So I'm gonna have to clean it up, but just protect the area. All I'm gonna do now is skip most of it because you've seen me do it in the test piece. I'm just gonna demold this. Hopefully I've got a really flat top. There we go. We've got some speckles there. That's the pigment paste. I really didn't mix it enough because my resin was getting warm. But we have a flat surface now, so I'm going to skip most of it. The speckles shouldn't really matter. I'm just going to sand that all over, and then again I'm just going to apply the crystal solution and let it fully dry. I'm going to include a little snippet of something I was doing yesterday whilst this was curing with some UV, and you'll see I'll do a voiceover, but it may look dry, but sometimes it's not. You really do have to make sure this is fully dry, guys. So you will see here I've just got some tissue, and I'm just touching the sides of the crystals, and you can see it sucking up, and the crystal then becomes clear. It's not ready for the next stage. It needs to be fully dry. Okay, the crystals on this are phenomenal. It's still a little bit damp up in this area here. I don't know whether you can see it on camera. If you look in these empty areas here, it's quite matte, but when you look up here, it's still quite glossy, which is damp. So if I was to do the next step now, it wouldn't work. Now, before I left the studio yesterday, I don't know whether you remember, with the hairspray technique, I created an awesome coaster. What I did, I didn't sand this down because, like I mentioned, the chameleon flakes would come off. This was just a separate experiment. I really did drown this with the solution. It was quite high because it just kept beading up. So I had to really smother it, and I left it overnight. You see these really long glass-like crystal shards. When it's fully dry, your crystals are going to look like this, and they need to look almost like glass before you move on to the next step. But look at these that have grown upwards. Absolutely incredible. I may have to try and find a way to kind of preserve those, maybe in a future video, but they are phenomenal. So with this one, I'm not gonna lie, that's my chair squeaking, by the way. I did have to start again. I had to wash it off because I wanted to try it out in the sun, and it kind of went a bit like that one that I just showed you. It started growing up in certain areas, and I didn't want that. I just wanted the crystals flat. So sunlight didn't work for me. So again, it does just wash off with some warm water. And then I just started again. So I'm now just going to leave this to fully dry. Once the areas dry up there, I think I can then put it in sunlight to speed it up, because all of the liquid's been absorbed. It can't start growing upwards. Right, so my crystals are now fully dry. So next, I've been watching the videos back that I kind of studied for this, and they tend to be using like a chrome, silver, metallic background. So I'm really worried this isn't going to give me a 3D effect similar to those videos, but it's just too late now. Oh dear. So now we go in with a black spray paint. Again, they use metallic. I've just got a matte black. So a very, very fine coat. I'm going to take this outside and just give it a spray. I mean, it's pretty cool as it is, but it's just not going to last because those crystals just aren't going to hold up to wear and tear. Next comes the stage I'm really, really nervous about, because we've got this far. We've grown this incredible crystal structure. Waited for it all to dry. Then we've just obviously spray painted it. We need to make sure this spray paint is perfectly dry also. So I'm going to leave this for maybe an hour. This is fast drying spray paint. I'm really, really nervous for this part. It could all go wrong and this wouldn't be an epic resin coaster. The moment of truth. My paint is fully dry. I'm so nervous. I've never been so nervous about any video before, because it has taken a few stages to get this far. So all they do in the video, I'm so scared, is just wet the piece. Oh no, look. See the paint starting to come off. I wonder whether it's because it's matte and I need something that's not matte. I don't know whether I can salvage it. I'm going to just, it's peeled away now. Look. It's a fail. It's not working. Right. I think I need to get a metallic black spray paint. That's such a shame. It's just not doing what I want it to do. It's peeling off the paint from the coaster. Look, if I show you this area here, see, it's just starting to come away, which is a big shame. It's not warm water. And to be fair, the more I'm going, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, we've lost quite a bit here, but we have still got these firework effects. It hasn't got as much depth as it has in the videos that I've watched, but I definitely think I need to try it again with a gloss metallic black spray paint. I don't know. Or do I just continue? It does look really funky. Let me think. So now I've cleaned it all up and I've dried it off. It's growing on me. I don't know what it is about it. I'm not too fond of this area here, but it does look like fireworks shooting up and exploding in the sky. It's a shame there wasn't enough, like a variation of colours in the background. Like, imagine if there was a mix of neon colours and they were showing through at these points, which gives me another idea, which I'm going to try and create. I don't know, maybe in a pendant or a bookmark. Try another bookmark. I think I could turn this into a definite firework vibe. Again, it hasn't given me the really 3D effect that I've seen in the videos, but I do think that's just user error. I've just used the wrong backing colours with the wrong paint. But I actually quite like this, so I am going to top coat this for the video. What I think I need to do is order the bits, and I'll do a follow-up video, and I'll do it right. 100%. So if you haven't subbed, hit that button, because that will come. There are a few other videos I've promised that are coming to the channel, so just bear with me, they will happen. My brain just sees something and I have to try it, so forgive me. Before I top coat this, I need to wait because spray paint still releases a gas. If I was to glaze this or top coat it now, it's going to give a very bad finish to the resin. So I need to let that air and do its thing over some time before I can glaze it. So I'm going to leave that overnight, but I'm going to try this bookmark idea now. So just as a trial run for the bookmark, I'm going to do it with UV resin. It'd be best to do it with epoxy, get a better cure. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to go with 4 colours, orange and pink, green and yellow from the Let's Resin Neon set again, and I'm just going to mix in some of the powder with some of my UV resin. So I have all my colours mixed up. Now to make UV resin bookmarks, they can be risky because what can happen is the resin, as it's warming and curing, UV resin in a bookmark tends to curl. So what you want to do, I mean, it's handy because I've got the Beast, which is variable wattage. So what I can do is I can actually lower my wattage right down. But you can also, if you haven't got that lamp, position your lamp quite from quite a distance and work in a thin layer to begin with. But I don't need to go as thin because I have the variable wattage. All I'm going to do is just drizzle in my colours in a wavy formation, and I'm just going to overlap them and just build them up. I've got 4 colours to squeeze in. That's all I'm doing. And once I have my colours in there, we're also going to swirl it in a minute. I'm just going to level out the resin all the way to the edges. Doesn't matter if they're all mixed. I want a variation of colour in the background for the fireworks to work. So remember, the side that's facing down is going to be up. So I think I'm just going to go like this and just swirl everything up. Do it again if you want. It's just an experiment. It's just to see if it works. I know it's upside down for you, but 6 watts is the lowest, so I've got that set to 6 watts. Now that's had 1 minute at 6 watts, I'm going to crank it all the way up to 48 watts for a minute. Then I'm going to flip it over and cure it for 1 minute at full power on the bottom. Now what I can do is just top that up with another layer of clear, and I'm also going to do the same thing. Because the resin, the UV resin is still warm, it's acceptable, is that the word? To curling up with this clear layer still. So I need to cure this on a low power for 1 minute, and then crank it up for a full cure for another minute. So there we have a perfectly flat UV resin bookmark. So I'm going to just quickly demold this and then skip the rest because it's turning out to be one of those really long-winded videos. I'm going to sand it, spray it, grow my crystals. I'm going to touch in the areas where I want the fireworks. I might show that bit. It's really good to watch. Yeah, back in the mo. Whilst that's doing its thing, I think what I missed as well, thinking about this coaster a bit more, I think I went in a bit too heavy with the black spray paint. But what they also did, they didn't just wash it, they used a low grit sandpaper. So I'm wondering if a lightly sand, I've done an area here, it's made a little bit of a difference, but I'm wondering whether I need to go over the whole piece with sandpaper to give it more depth. I don't know. I think that it could work, but I think I should have done that whilst the crystals were still on. So I am just going to try anyway and make it a bit more 3D by sanding some of the paint down. It's definitely adding some more depth to the piece. I don't know. Again, just winging it. I mean, if you look here, that small crystal area just in that triangle wasn't there a minute ago until I sanded it. Let's see if it does it with the other one as well. If there are any crystals underneath there. Maybe I've just, again, not paid attention to what I'm watching. But it seems to be making a difference. See it? So I think I just forgot a step. But the video that I watched, again, I had to watch it with English subtitles, auto-translated. So some things can get lost in translation. It's definitely looking more 3D. I think I can salvage this. Look how much of a difference that has made. Okay, we've still got these really strong green areas here, but it's made a much more 3D effect. And once we get our layer of resin on top of that, I think that's really going to come out. Anyway, back to the bookmark. See that there? Doesn't that look like a spider coming down? Just as I moved my phone, I noticed it. Look. There's the little body bit, and there's the legs. There's the web. Anyway, I thought I'd share that. So we can just make our fireworks when it gets to this point. See it? So that will be one firework. And it's just going over as it's drying. Just adding our, there's one there. And just adding them where you want them. This area again is too wet, I think. It might work. It's starting to, possibly, I don't know. But I'm going to continue just adding them in the colour areas that I want to show through. Right, so that was sanded just after washing it. Again, I didn't really want to sand it whilst it was really, like, I didn't want to sand it with the water because I am worried that it's just going to peel off that paint. So I let it dry slightly and just gave it like a light sand all over. But I want it darker. I want it darker so that really just the fireworks are showing through. But that is incredible. It really is. Absolutely crazy. Imagine how much that's going to pop when I get a top coat. I'm going to sand down a little bit more in some of these darker areas. Just to really, I think I'm going to try again with the fireworks off camera. But again, I'm not going to sand it as much. I just want the star formations to come through. But with this one, I'm going to try and get that 3D effect. And just work over it a bit more with the sandpaper. That is looking crazy. Right, again, I'm going to let that one rest overnight before I top coat it. I mean, you don't get this kind of resin art normally. This opens up so much. Imagine this as like a river table, like a big table. Imagine this effect on a, there's so much on a tumbler, a cup. It's going to be crazy what we can do with this. Okay, so I've just done another one of the firework ones. I filmed it for a different platform, but I've rushed this. I've top coated it, and of course I needed to wait for the spray paint to degas, so it's got a dodgy finish. But all I did differently was I used a bit more black spray paint and only sanded over the firework areas. Again, I've rushed it. I'm going to need to sand it and top coat it, but you can see those absolutely crazy firework effects going on there. It really is something different. It's incredible. This was leftovers, so I'm going to try again on that. Okay, it is now, I'm panicking, guys. It is now Thursday, and today, not that you can see the day through because the minute hand's in the way. I'm due to post this video at 8 o'clock. I've got so much to do. I've got to top coat these. I've got to stitch everything, edit everything. Yeah, I'm now in kind of panic mode. So I am going to rush this and top coat these with UV resin just to get them done. And I also, I'm not going to be able to top coat this one. That's the issue. What I might have to do is I'm going to try it again. This was the leftover, really shallow, just to see if I can get a better effect this time. I'm going to sand it whilst I'm washing it, and just see if I can get a better effect than this one. I'm going to go with a lighter spray as well because I think I went too heavy. And yeah, and try and get that one looking okay as well. Oh, panic mode. When I top coat these, I'm going to apply my resin. I'm going to begin curing it at a low wattage, and then after a minute at low wattage. I think I'll cure it to begin with at 12 watts for 1 minute, and then I'll crank it up to full power for another minute. And I'm really sorry this video has been like many experiments. It just goes off and wanders in different directions. But guys, you know what I'm like. You've been here long enough. So I think you will agree that that one turned out so much better than the first one. It's just a shame I haven't got time. This is what happens when you have a day off. I could have come into the studio yesterday and I could have top coated this today and got it ready and finished for the video, but I was so concentrated on the other pieces and just chilling out for a day. But it's got so much more depth and 3D vibe to it just using that sandpaper during the wash process. So, and I've seen this in a lot of the comments on the videos that I've watched, is that I don't know whether certain creators have been gatekeeping it. I don't know. But a lot of people are having issues getting the 3D effect, and I think that is the key, is using the sandpaper as you're washing it. I wish I'd done that with the other piece. But I just can't, I don't want to risk top coating this today. Right, okay, as always, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment. If you haven't subbed, hit that button for me. So there is the one that you saw me do. And there is a huge difference. I mean, I don't dislike it. I really do love it. But it's just, that one looks so much better for me. I think the crystals in this were just too wide and too big in some areas. If you remember, I panicked thinking it was the paint coming off, but it wasn't. It's just the crystal formations were just really large, and that made me panic. Whereas with this one, they were a lot thinner, and the structures are a lot, if you look, some of the formations are quite different compared to this one. These were more star effect. So what I did differently with this one is I only poked a few star effects and just let the crystals grow themselves instead of interfering and you know, building these star structures. Instead, they just grew longer and thinner. So with this one, I poked around a bit more, if you saw during the hyperlapse, and that has kind of interfered with the structure. So it may sound all really technical, but I think if you just covered it with the solution and just let it do its thing, you don't necessarily even have to do these pokey things. I mean, they're okay. I think for certain effects, like if you want the firework effects, it's really, really cool. But then if you want something like this, just do a few maybe, but just let the crystals grow. Absolutely incredible. So the bookmark you saw we did on Tuesday, I rushed that one for a different platform. Absolutely insane. It's just, I want to do a coaster of this now, but there's no point me doing a video on it because it's just repeating the process just on a bigger scale. And I just need to poke more like this one to get the color to come through and the firework effects. But it is absolutely insane. And this was the one that you saw me do. Absolutely incredible pieces. I love it. Something very different. Again, imagine this with different colors. I think I'm gonna have to invest in some spray paints, some different color spray paints, so I can spray over afterwards. Maybe do it with a silver backing, like a mica silver or something, and then build up, and then I can kind of spray different colors. Or even I suppose I could color my resin and pour that on afterwards. I don't know. I'm gonna have to experiment. It's kind of bringing spray paint art over to resin art. It's gonna take some mastering, but I'm sure there'll definitely be more videos with this, and I'll try and simplify it and not branch off into so many different routes. But again, you know what I'm like. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. I will see you. It's been a long week doing this one. Definitely give it a thumbs up for me and drop me a comment, even if it's just a smiley face. And yeah, hit that button for me. I will see you for the next one. Bye for now. And yes, remember, I will top coat this in another day or two, and I'll put the photo on the community tab.